Wow. I'm sure, like me, absolutely every one of you remembers where you were on that September day. And we all probably have just incredible stories that we can tell, things that were happening in our life and what was going on and the things that happened in our life as a result of what happened on that September day. I consider myself of course I often consider myself one of the most luckiest people in the world. I was at Unity Village, which is my spiritual home. And when it all happened, Unity people are usually very absolutist. And there were a lot of, let me go back just a little bit. A small group from the church at that time, back in 2001, and I had gone out to be there for World Day of Prayer and to be there for a retreat. And as I was thinking about what I was going to be saying on this day, I realized they're all in spirit except me. So I thought, well, they obviously were needed on the other side of life to do some healing and some work. Because that's what we're here for, and that's what we're here for, to do healing work. And I'll be getting on to that, but I have to tell you a few little tidbits about the people that were there with me and the shock and the people there were a lot of people there from Manhattan, and of course they saw their city being attacked, and a lot of them lived right around that area, and they were wondering how they were going to get home, and of course planes were going to be stopped and all this stuff, and everyone was sort of walking around. Although we were grounded in truth, I think we were like every other American, we thought, how could this happen? How could this happen to us? And everyone I know had their own thoughts and their own responses to that. One of the first people that I actually ended up speaking with after the announcement had been made about the first tower being hit was a man who had been responsible. He was really my sign for going into Unity Minister. His name was Gary Jones. Just a wonderful man, and I had asked God, this was back when I thought I needed to ask God for signs. I had said to God, if I'm supposed to go into this Unity ministry, I want you to give me a sign. Now, mind you, no one at that time in Unity would ever encourage anybody to go into ministry. They just didn't do it. It wasn't something Unity people did. I mean, here we all are following our own path. And everybody needs to follow their own path, not to be asking for signs. But anyway, I asked for a sign. It was a long time ago. And my friend Gary, I went to Unity Inn one morning for breakfast, and Gary and I are the only two people in the inn, which holds several hundred people. And I thought, isn't this strange? So Gary is going through the line, and he had been one of my instructors when I was going for licensed teacher training, and I just loved him. I mean, one of the nicest guys. So, hey Gary, how you doing this morning? Hey, music, blah, blah, blah. And he, right there standing on the line getting our food, he says to me, Nancy, if you ever give any thought to going into ministry, I want you to know that my office door is always open. And I thought, holy Toledo, I just asked last night, and I've got my sign today. I guess I need to take this serious. Well, needless to say, Gary was always kind of one of my very favorite people. So when he was the one that was the first one really that I exchanged words with, first one on this plane that I exchanged words with, I said, Gary. What? So he said, Nancy, you know what? He said, just stand firm in the truth that you know. Principle never changes. God is always good. And regardless of any outer circumstance, our task is to look for the good. Well, alrighty then. Well, I took it to heart. I loved what he said, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, Nancy, now you've been a minister now for a while, and you might just need to prepare yourself for someone asking you what you asked Gary. And wouldn't you know, one of the men that had come with us on the trip from the church here, he had said, and he had a son, young son, and he said to me, Nancy, what am I going to tell my son? What am I going to tell my son? I talked to him about this all-good God. How could God let this happen? And I thought, whoa. So I said, well, sir, I just really don't know the exact words to say to you right now. But I know that as you take time in the quiet, that you will be directed. And I reiterated a little bit about what Gary had said to me. He'd not been in Unity all that long, and I just didn't know how open and receptive he could be in that moment, because he hears us touting, God is good and God is good all the time. And when we judged by the appearance of what was going on around us, not only to our country, not only to that beautiful city of New York, not only to those incredibly gorgeous Twin Towers, but all of the people that were involved in that. All of the people. The Twin Towers, the Pentagon, Pennsylvania. How can this be? How can a good God be in charge? This just isn't computing. It is not making sense. And I think many people have carried that through with each time 9/11 rolls around. 02, 03, 04. Although there was like a great uniting, everybody was flying the flag and everyone was coming together and nurturing and loving each other. And it almost seemed like there was going to be some sort of a spiritual resurgence. And it almost seemed that as people might want to take a look at this whole idea of, could we, as Americans, possibly have created this situation? How could we have done that? How could that be possible? Does the word fear come to mind? Does the idea of people living in fear set up any sort of a dynamic in the world? Yes, it does. As we listen to the song, Alan Jackson's song, none of us would want to take responsibility for creating something like 9/11. Shoot, most of us don't want to take credit for creating our own life. What is it that we know in Unity? How do we create? By our thoughts, by the thoughts that we hold in mind. Now, a part of why we are on this planet at this time is to talk to Jesus, to talk to God, to talk to Spirit, to get this guidance that is going to keep us centered in love. The greatest of these is love. I wanted to talk about love on this day because I believe that there is so much healing to be done as a result of 9/11 in our country and in our own lives. Now, we are not sitting in the White House. We are not making political decisions for anybody. But we are making decisions in our own life. And to the degree that we are willing to accept the responsibility that we create things in our own life based on the thoughts that we hold in mind, the loving thoughts that we hold in mind. And what is it we know in unity? That each time that we do that work, we are affecting what? We are affecting the race consciousness, which is what? It is the prevailing thought of an area, of a person, of a city, of a state, of a country. Because remember that thing called oneness? That we are all one, and to the degree that we choose to do that healing work of staying centered in love, of being about being more loving. I can remember there was a gentleman working at Unity Village when this happened, and he was of Indian descent. And of course, he said, "I'm scared." And people said to him, "Well, what are you scared of?" He said, "Because I look like an Arab." And I mean, it was a genuine fear in that man's being. There was such a concern, once again, about being judged by appearance. Did all Arabs, did all Muslims, were each and every one of them responsible for what happened on that day? Of course not. Of course not. There were a few bad guys that hated us and were jealous of us, and so schemed for all of this to happen. My, what can I do about that? I can choose to hold thoughts of love. Maybe not for that individual, but for the awareness of that particular group of people, perhaps. The greatest of these is love. We've heard it time and time again. It's love. It is love that will heal the division, the hurt feelings, the hurt thought, the sense of having to make it right. How dare you attack my country? Why, we certainly attack enough. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could just do away with the whole thing of war? Now, I'm not saying this like a pacifist. I'm saying that as a spiritual being that we are, as that soul that we are, we can sit in the quiet. We can take our own quiet time and just choose to be centered in love. Like I say, perhaps not be individual, but once again, if we are willing to find that light, that understanding of oneness, we can bring healing to us, and like I said, to our nation. It's something we can do. Remember? Yes, of course we can remember. I remember the first time I saw the Twin Towers, I was with my brother, who has been gone for a long, long time. And I can remember, he loved New York City. He lived in New York City and he loved it. And he took me on one of these little boat rides around the city. And I can remember him saying, "Look at that, man. Isn't that," and he's talking about the Twin Towers. And he said, "Isn't that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?" And of course it was lovely, and of course I loved my brother, and so I said, "Yes, it is. It is, it's great." And my first thought on that day when it happened was, oh, thank God he's not here to see it. Thank God he's not here to see it. And I believe it's when we come out of that sense of love and remembrance that healing begins. We are so much more than we give ourselves credit for. We do judge by appearance. We do live in fear. But we are willing to move out of that. We replace fear with love, and the healing begins. whether we right now believe that or take that to heart. That's the truth. So with you, I do remember all of that. But like you, and I know that you really want to do this with me, allow the healing, the deeper healing, the continued healing to start once again. Just close your eyes for a second and move into that quiet place within you. And perhaps just hold this thought. I am willing to be reminded that the greatest of these is love. I show up as a healer to heal myself, my loved ones, my nation, the world, and so it is. Namaste.